Back in the late 60s, there existed a religious sect known as the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Their core beliefs were at the end of the world, Christ and Satan would come together, reconcile, and begin to judge and execute the population. So they worshipped both of them. While this information set people on edge, it did not deter people from becoming members of the process, and the church flourished throughout the 60s and 70s. In that period, an increase was seen in missing children across the United Kingdom, the Mexican Yucatan, Pennsylvania, and even the state of New Orleans. Kids ranging from as young as 3 to as old as 10 were being taken on walks home in their front yards and even sometimes from their homes in the dead of the night. Bodies were rarely ever recovered. When they were, well, let's just say it was quickly established that it would have been better for the families to simply hold out for a safe return. What was done to these children was simply horrifying. Every unspeakable act you can think of in order to inflict pain was carried out. All children lived completely blind, with a look of indescribable pain and terror on their faces. If any were discovered by the authorities, or God forbid, passers-by, due to the satanic panic raging throughout the United States and United Kingdoms at the time, most information regarding satanic cults or missing person cases were kept under lock and key so as to not cause any mass hysteria. One particular incident caused so much havoc, it was feared that if brought to public light, it would shock the nation to its core. On October 12, 1975, a photograph was posted to local authorities in 15 states of the USA and 5 counties in the UK, all receiving the same image, the one you see accompanying this story. On October 13th, a normal middle-class family in Essex was settling down for the night when the father heard his son screaming from his room. As he darted upstairs, he found a man in a white lab coat, goggles, and a modified gas mask, towering over his frightened 70-year-old son. The father reacted quickly and subdued the man before calling the authorities. When he was brought in, he was identified as R.E.V. Michael Turnwell, though he had no records of ever living in the area. In fact, the residence he was registered at was 300 miles away. What was he doing way out here? In his pockets, they found a bottle of chloroform, a rag, a switchblade knife, and a small pocketbook, filled from cover to cover with incomprehensible gibberish, mixed in with citations from satanic verses, diegetic, and the Old Testament. When asked what the hell he was doing with all these items and his purposes for the young boy, he simply smiled wide-eyed and said, "I'm doing God's work. They needed to see the light." Under further interrogations, it was revealed he was a member of the Church of the Process. He agreed to show the police where the children were being taken, in exchange for protection, assuring them all the while that the children are fine. They were God now. They saw the light. Not fully understanding this vague reference, they persisted and got him to open up. This is what he told them. "We knew that the children could be spared judgment, for they do not understand sin. They are pure, but in order to be accepted into God's loving arms, they first needed to see the light. So we subjected them to it with a God machine. Those that became blind or removed their goggles were punished accordingly. Those that were not blinded were accepted into God's flock, their souls escaping their bodies and their shells to be used as we saw fit. They were no longer harboring any children." He trailed off, giggling like a child. "Those were our toys to play with, and believe me, officers, we did enjoy our toys, even if they broke sometimes. Love the sin, hate the sinner." He burst out laughing, the room seemingly shaking around him. After a few moments, they asked him what had happened to the children that turned around, as all the children positioned in this image were facing outwards. The Reverend gave a sick, twisted smile and said slowly in an unnaturally deep voice, "Those are the ones who become part of his legion. Who do you think carries on our work when some of us get caught or perish? We are everywhere, detective. We will bring all children to the light. You simply need to look west and you will know the face of evil." He suddenly leaned forward to instantly stare at the detectives opposite him and asked sadistically, "Tell me, do you have children?" He was found dead in his cell the following morning, after concealed a cyanide cap in his teeth. Some weeks following, one of the officers involved in the case lost a child, a little boy. He simply vanished one day, walking home from school. His body was never recovered. Serial killers Fred and Rose West were caught 19 years later on the 24th of February, 1994, after a 20-year spree in which they raped and killed more than 13 people, including their own children. When Fred was interrogated, he mentioned that 20 children were captured and killed by himself, Rose and others he did not know of in a barn, not too far from where they lived. When asked how he managed to capture them all so easily, he simply smiled and said, "It's easy when you live directly next to a church."